Episode 8, Tariff Pauses and Planning Chaos, when calm isn't clarity. Hey y'all, welcome back to Logistics at a Crossroads. I'm Gia, and if you're in planning or operations, the week of April 10th probably had you holding your breath and then letting it out in frustration. Because on Wednesday, April 10th of 2025, the markets rallied. Why, you may ask? The White House announced a 90-day pause on certain tariffs. The EU followed with a similar reprieve. Sounds good, right? Here's the catch. It excluded China. And for those of us behind the scenes, that did not feel like relief. It felt more like whiplash. And this pause might look like a break in the storm, but let me tell you, it really isn't clarity. It's chaos dressed up in optimism. Because in my world, aka logistics, we don't plan in 90-day windows. We plan for seasons, for production cycles, for forecasts that stretch over quarters and years. When something as major as tariffs get paused, it's a temporary relief. It's supposed to be anyway. But for us planners, it's just turbulence. There's no traction. And I've seen it before. Back when the administration first imposed tariff hikes, we were thrown into a mad scramble. Some teams started rerouting shipments to avoid the higher costs, while others had to adjust orders last minute to account for the price fluctuations. And it wasn't smooth sailing by any means. Instead of preparing for the long haul, we were forced to react quickly, with a constant sense of uncertainty in the air. And it isn't something you can resolve in 90 days. It requires stability over time, something that unfortunately has been lacking in recent trade policy shifts. See, from my side, the planner seat, this is what I see. Shifting schedules, contingency plans stacking up, production teams holding orders until they know what materials they can even price. And with China still off the pause list, core components remain unpredictable. Meanwhile, our U.S. domestic suppliers, already stretched by reshoring and labor gaps and rising input costs, are expected to backfill without the infrastructure or the certainty to do so. It's not that they don't want to deliver. Believe me, it's not that at all. It's just that they can't promise what our policy is not supporting. And what does that look like? To someone who's never been in it or doesn't understand it, let's take a supplier that I work with. They had to delay an entire production line because they couldn't confirm material prices. They were stuck in a waiting game. They couldn't even place an order. They couldn't predict the costs or the timelines needed to make it happen. And while they were stuck in limbo, our team had to rework schedules, risk stockouts, production delays, and unfortunately, customer dissatisfaction. And that was just the beginning of cascading impacts that delays or changes have. And here's what people outside logistics don't always see. A delayed trade update means rerouting. A last-minute policy change means we're scrambling for space. A sourcing gap means holding freight longer than our margins truly allow. And all of it trickles down from factory floors to final mile deliveries. When tariffs or trade policies change unexpectedly, it's not just the cost of goods that goes up. Think about it. It's truly the cost of doing business, because you're not only rerouting containers to avoid higher tariffs, but now you've got to pay extra storage, or you've got to pay to get expedited shipping to get the goods to market on time. And when freight's in limbo, margins shrink. Companies are forced to make hard choices. Those choices might affect their bottom line, their customers, or their employees. And yes, a lot of folks are betting on the U.S. manufacturing as a safety net. And believe me, it is a huge, important piece of the puzzle. But we have to be real. We cannot kid ourselves. Our domestic capacity isn't there yet. Workforce pipelines are still recovering. Facilities are still playing catch up from the last few years of unpredictability. Consumers, buyers, everyone screamed, just make it here. Just build it here. Just assemble it here. It sounds simple, but until we invest to scale, it's not a solution, it's a bottleneck. And I'll use the automotive sector as an example. We've seen a huge push to reshore those productions over the past few years, but the infrastructure still isn't built for it. Assembly plants are slow to ramp up capacity, and many manufacturers are still struggling with labor shortages here in the U.S. And what happens when tariffs hit? They can't quickly pivot. In fact, they're left trying to patch gaps with stopgap measures. And for those that don't understand what that means they're relying on overseas suppliers for components. Or worse, slowing production down altogether. And the challenge, it's not just about will, it's about capability. And until we reinvest in expanding our domestic capacity and workforce, we're not creating more resilience, we're just creating more bottleneck throughout the transportation industry. And it's also important to recognize that this isn't just a U.S. issue. The global supply chain is still recovering from years of disruptions. I mean, other countries are having their own struggles with labor and production capacity, which means that a surge in U.S. manufacturing may lead to shortages in key components globally. And without a solid workforce infrastructure, we're putting a lot of pressure on the domestic market that it can't handle. We need more than 90-day pauses. We need a long game policy, a trade strategy that matches logistics reality. Because without it, we're not managing our supply chains. We're managing uncertainty, day in, day out. In my view, our long-term planning needs to be backed by stable, predictable policy. Without that, we're left playing reactive games. We're always trying to catch up instead of staying ahead. The policy shift needs to align with the logistics cycle, whether it's production, shipping, or labor forces. The truth is, managing logistics requires foresight. And without it, we're not creating solutions. We're just putting out fires. And I am tired of putting out fires. We need to anticipate the disruptions, not just respond to them. For that, we need policy that thinks long term. I want to hear how your team is adapting. Has short-term policy shifts thrown off your forecasts? Are you seeing any bright spots in domestic sourcing? Or just more bottlenecks? Let me know your experiences and how you're dealing with these curveballs. You've been listening to Holding the Line, a Logistics at a Crossroads podcast. Subscribe, share, and follow us for more honest conversations at the intersection of logistics and life. Remember, you can join in by commenting below or finding me on LinkedIn. Until next time, I'll be navigating the crossroads right along with you.